Typically, adults aren't allowed to dress up in full costumes in the Disney parks, but for certain events like the Villains After Hours party, it is actually encouraged. So since I am going as the humanoid Maleficent, which I will link that video down below, I have my husband dressing up as the dragon form of Maleficent. So of course, I have to make his costume too. My costume was actually pretty simple. I already had a black dress to base it off of. I am adding some drapes onto the sleeves to represent her cloak, and other than that, I just made a pair of horns on a headband, and that's the video that's linked down below. But for my husband's dragon costume, it's a little more complicated. I definitely had to get a few more specific items for this one. It's not anything hard or complicated or even hard to find, but it's just things I didn't have on hand. For this project, you need a cheap, plain black hoodie, something for pattern paper. I just used some plain tissue paper I had on hand, a very large black t-shirt, the larger the better, and then 1 or 2 purple t-shirts. I got 2 that matched, one to use to make the hoodie, and then a second one for him to actually wear underneath the hoodie so they would match perfectly. Then I got a large roll of heat bond, something to make your patterns with, whether that's a Sharpie or a pencil, a pair of fabric scissors, and an iron. Just a quick note that in this particular case, the sleeve of my hoodie is longer than the side seam, so that's something you'll have to keep in mind as you make your wings. A couple things to keep in mind. You want to make the wing big enough to have a pretty full range of motion, but not so big that you have a ton of extra fabric that is just going to be bulky and annoying underneath your arm. You may have to tape a couple pieces of paper together to have enough to cover the space that you need. Then open the sleeve away from the side seam to the angle that you want your wing to be. Then trace those 2 lines and pick where you want to stop and start. I'm going to go down onto the waistband of the hoodie, but because the sleeve pulls in so tightly, I'm going to stop before the cuff on the sleeve. Then I sort of eyeballed how many points I wanted to have along the bottom edge of the wing and sort of freehanded dots. Then I sketched in some little scallop shapes between each of those points. To keep things straight later on, I made sure to mark the arm versus the side seam sections of the wings, because as you can see, they're very similar, but not exactly mirror image. Then I used a mixture of freehanding and a ruler to get each purple segment of the wing sketched in. I want the spaces between each segment to be pretty similar, but they don't have to be exactly perfect. No one's going to be able to tell. Then again, to keep things straight, I numbered them 1 through 4, starting by the arm and going towards the side seam. Then I traced each of those 4 sections onto a separate piece of tissue paper. Make sure to transfer your numbers over, and keynote, the number 1 and the number 4 can, depending on how you draw them, if you're really messy like I am, they can end up kind of similar and easy to confuse later on. Then cut out all 5 pattern pieces. Next, I laid out the black t-shirt, and if you keep it completely whole, you will be able to cut through both layers and automatically have 2 mirror images so that you will have 2 pieces wrong sides together. Pin it in place. Everything's going to be kind of on the bias no matter what you do, so it doesn't really have to go with any sort of a grain line. But this is where it helps to get a very large t-shirt, so I made sure to grab the largest size that they had in the store. This I think was like 2 or 3 sizes bigger than the hoodie that we are actually using. That way you know that you're going to have plenty of fabric to fit the wings onto. Then just cut around your pattern piece, going through both layers of the t-shirt. And that gives you a left and right wing. Then just set that aside for now. Next, I grabbed one of the purple t-shirts. I did buy 2 of these, one for him to actually wear, so that's in his actual size, and then I grabbed another one that matched in the same color, but of a larger size to give myself more fabric to work with. Then I just cut along the side seams and the shoulder seams and removed the sleeves, so I ended up with 2 very large pieces of purple fabric. I laid my 4 interior pattern pieces over the 2 layers of purple fabric, and this shows how a 1 and a 4 can potentially look very similar. This was mostly to give me an idea of how much of the heat bond paper that I was going to need, so I rolled that out over the pattern pieces and cut down 2 sheets of that. Then I followed the instructions on the heat bond packaging, and I laid 1 sheet of the heat bond paper over 1 layer of the purple fabric and ironed it down. I did that to both pieces of purple fabric. Then I put both purple pieces down, purple fabrics together. Then I laid my purple segment pattern pieces out on top and pinned those down. And once again, cut out all 4 sections, going through both layers of fabric. Then again, following the heat bond instructions, I peeled off the paper, laid each section down on the wing, got it about where I wanted it, and then ironed it into place. The long smooth edges and the interior work pretty easily, but make sure you really work in those corners. Because of these very sharp triangular pieces, those corners are going to be much more likely to peel up, so I made sure to really press down on those and work really well on those corners to make sure that it will stay and last through a lot of wear and tear. Then repeat with each section until you have finished 1 wing. And as you can see, by doing those segments, it folds up really neatly down into itself. It really seems like a real dragon wing that will just fly away. Once I've repeated all of this onto the other wing, it is time to attach each wing to the sweatshirt. I started pinning where all the seams of the body and the sleeve meet, so that was a nice sort of centralized anchor point, and then I worked my way out along the sleeve and then down the side seam. Then I sewed the 2 pieces together in the same manner, starting where all those seams met and then working out towards the 2 end sections. I chose to do this by hand with a simple whip stitch since I thought that was a lot easier with the hoodie being completely sewn. You could do this by hand, particularly if you were willing to open up the side seams and sew everything in nice and neatly that way, but for the costume grade that I'm going for here, I thought this was sufficient. And that's how I made a DIY Dragon Maleficent costume for the Disney Villains After Hours party. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think it's very identifiable as Maleficent, or at least as a dragon, but it's also very comfortable and easy to wear around the parks. It's not going to be obtrusive and getting in the way of just having fun. I hope you found this helpful and inspiring. If you did, please like down below. I update a new video every Monday and Thursday. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next time.